James Potter, Remus Lupin, Sirius Black, Peter Pettigrew, Pause for Breath, and The Prisoner of Azkaban by gonzoclock. Chapter 2. Prongs, James continues, pointing at himself. Wormtail, Moony, and Padfoot, he adds, gesturing at each boy respectively. Padfoot rolls his eyes. And you are? James asks, resolutely ignoring Padfoot. Harry tries to say something, he really does, but all he can do is open and close his mouth. The severity of the situation keeps hitting him over and over again. Fred and George exchange yet another worried glance, then turn to James. Fred, George says, pointing at Fred. George, Fred says, pointing at George. Harry, they say together, pointing at Harry. And can I say, George starts, a glint in his eyes, big fans of your work. Fellow pranksters? James asks, getting a matching excited gleam in his eyes. We'll have to compare notes sometimes. Prongs, Lupin growls. Bigger things. Right, James says, hitting one of his hands on his other palm. Bigger things. What's happening? Last thing I remember is doing the final incantation required to activate the... He cuts himself off, wincing. The map? Fred asks. You know about the map? James asks, eyes nervously darting between the twins and Harry. Fred and George exchange a grimace. Harry mostly just feels like throwing up. Fred says, we had it for a couple years now. James sits back, looking stunned as the implications of that sink in. I knew we shouldn't have fucked with blood magic, Padfoot mutters. James turns to Padfoot, a strange smile on his face. He starts, are going to discuss that later. Wait to let the dog out of the bag, Pads, Wormtail says. Padfoot sits back in a huff. Please, will someone explain what the fuck is going on? Lupin asks, looking up from his hands. He's starting to look a little feral. Harry looks from Lupin and back over to Padfoot. He knows he's seen him somewhere, but thinking anything beyond, I've now met my dad. That's my dad, and he's my age, and he's here and alive, and that's him over there, is not a possibility right now. Ever heard of the Philosopher's Stone? George starts. Yes, Lupin says slowly. Oh, Fred says, realization dawning. Whoops. Harry brings his knees up to his chest, hands threading in his hair. Are you... Harry starts, then clears his throat. Are you telling me we accidentally created 4 carbon copies of the marauders via the stone? It did say blood magic, Fred points out, looking a bit queasy. Oh my god, Harry groans, stomach turning. Oh my god. Copies? Wormtail asks nervously. We're not real? The 4 exchange terror-stricken looks. Then James relaxes and shrugs. Ah, who cares, he says, waving them off. Me, Wormtail squeaks out. Nah, think about it. I can think and feel and remember things, and I'm assuming you lads can't too. I feel real enough for me, and that's all I need. Wormtail looks down at his hands, face bloodless. The other 2 exchange a look, then turn back to Fred, George, and Harry. What? Lupin says hoarsely. What year is it? 1993, Fred says. George shoots him a look, and he shrugs. No use drawing it out. Huh, Jim says, sitting back. Neat. Padfoot repeats hollowly. Neat, Wormtail says flatly, staring at James. No, it's not neat, Lupin sputters. Oh my god, this is horrible. It's been, 18 years? Well, James says, hopping up and dusting his pants off. Nothing to do for it now. Or yeah, might as well make the best of it. Padfoot, Wormy, and Lupin share another incredulous look. Harry feels, once again, like he's on the verge of a panic attack. How is James so chill about this? Is he always like this? Guess Harry will get the chance to find out, because his dad is alive now. Harry really thinks he's going to be sick. Where are we? Hogwarts, right? James continues, looking over at the tapestry. We can't just leave, Lupin says, and shooting at and grabbing James's leg before he can walk over to look out from behind the tapestry. We need to talk to Dumbledore, to whoever the headmaster is. Ugh, Harry says, then cringes. He hadn't meant for that to slip out. The four turn to look at him incredulously. What do you have against the headmaster? Lupin asks. Forget it, Harry says uncomfortably. I didn't mean. Don't worry about it. We should definitely go visit Dumbledore. Right, James says, giving Harry a weird look. Oh, let's go. Harry doesn't see what to do other than follow the older boy, out of the secret room and down the hall. James walks like he's the king of the world and knows it too. The other three boys, despite their obvious fear and confusion, fall easily into place beside him. Harry finds himself slotted in beside Lupin. Fred, George, and Wormtail are bringing up the back. James and Padfoot are at the head of the pack. James pointing out various differences and similarities to their time. Where is everyone? James calls back. The halls are so empty. Hogsmeade, Harry responds, feeling a spike of bitterness despite everything that's going on right now. Why didn't you go? James asks, turning around to face Harry as he keeps moving forward, flawlessly adjusting his stride so he's essentially walking backwards. Harry starts, then feels his throat close up. He clears his throat a couple times. Didn't get my permission slip signed. Harry finally gets out. James's brows furrowed. Your parents sound like real pieces of work. Lupin is burying his face in his hands again, and Harry opens his mouth to say something, anything, when, what in the meaning of, oh dear God on high? Minnie! James calls as he whirls around again, face breaking out into a grin. McGonagall is standing in the middle of the hall, face white. She's looking a tad faint. It's nothing like her usual demeanour, but Harry can't even begin to blame her. He's probably looking no better off. What? McGonagall says again. Fred and George push their way to the front of the group. Professor, we were just on our way to Dumbledore's. You're welcome to join us. McGonagall blinks, then buries her head in her hands and groans. I don't know if I can do this, she says, looking up. Padfoot shoots her a charming smile, saying, Come on, Min, you love us. McGonagall turns a steely glare on Padfoot. Mr. Black, she grits out. You are on thinner ice than you could possibly believe. Harry feels his heart stop as he, Fred, and George all whirl on who was now, in hindsight, a very obviously Sirius Black. Fred and George pull Harry behind them, pulling themselves between him and Sirius. Harry would appreciate the gesture, but all the unexpected physical contact is making him feel especially jumpy and unbalanced. Wormtail and Lupin exchange an unreadable glance. James suddenly places himself in front of Sirius, laughing nervously. What's that supposed to mean? McGonagall sighs, looking suddenly very world-weary. Let's get you boys to the headmaster. The rest of the track passes in awkward silence. Fizzing Whizbees, McGonagall says as they stop in front of the entrance to the headmaster's office. She jerks her head, and the seven begin to climb up the stairs. James is the first in, followed closely by Sirius, then Lupin and Wormtail, then Harry, Fred, George, and McGonagall. Dumbledore is sitting at his desk with his hands clasped in front of him, looking perfectly at ease as they crowd into his office. Mr. Potter, Black, Pettigrew, and Lupin. I must say it is a surprise indeed to see the four of you here, as you are now. It's a surprise to be here, James laughs. Harry flinches, and McGonagall shoots him a sympathetic look. Ah, where are my manners? Please sit, Dumbledore says, waving his wand and summoning enough chairs to sit everyone. After everyone is seated, Dumbledore looks around the room, zeroing on Harry. Harry forces a strange smile as he meets the headmaster's eyes. The headmaster is silent for a moment, and Harry tries not to shiver under his considering stare. I see we are not entirely honest about the fate of the Philosopher's Stone, Dumbledore says mildly. Slip my mind, Harry lies through his teeth, breaking eye contact. At least this confirms Hermione's legitimacy theory. He'll need to let his friends know to avoid eye contact with the headmaster in the future. I see, Dumbledore says again, unimpressed. He then turns back to the marauders. So, he says, you boys are in your 5th year, is that correct? They nod hesitantly. Well then, I see no reason as to why you four shouldn't continue your education. In the meanwhile, we can figure out what to do with you outside of the school year. Should you agree, we'll have you start up next term, after the winter holidays. You'd have time in the meanwhile to readjust. The four exchange a look, seemingly having a silent discussion. Finally, James looks back to the headmaster. Works for us, he says. Albus, McGonagall starts. Dumbledore holds up a hand. Later, he says. Believe me when I say they are who they say they are. Dumbledore then stands up and retrieves the sorting hat from its stand. He hands it to McGonagall, who looks sort of like she wants to throw it right back in Dumbledore's face. Harry stifles a snort. He'd pay to see that. One by one, the hat calls out the same house, Gryffindor. Harry, Fred, George, and even McGonagall wince as the hat calls out the same for Sirius, which has Lupin, Pettigrew, and James sharing a look. Sirius mostly looks smug. Harry thinks he hears mutter, 2 for 2, take that, Wally, but he can't make that make sense in his head. Well, Dumbledore claps. I think a visit to the hospital wing is in order. You wouldn't want to find out the stone missed a lung the hard way. The poor boys suddenly look a little sick. Minerva, Dumbledore says, if you would escort them? I really think we should talk about this, McGonagall protests. I'll make sure everyone gets to the hospital wing, Lupin pipes up. You two can discuss. McGonagall's face softens as she looks at the boy, his face radiating helpfulness and responsibleness. Thank you, Mr. Lupin, she says. Then she pales even further and looks over at Dumbledore. Albus, should we warn? I'll invite him to my office once these boys are off, Dumbledore says, then hesitates. Both of them. McGonagall gets a queasy look on her face. The marauders share a look, and Harry furrows his brow. Both of them? Obviously they need to give Professor Lupin a heads up, but who else? Off you go, McGonagall says, waving the 7 out. Mrs. Weasley? She starts, looking at the twins. They give her identical grins, and she sighs. Never mind. The twins salute and head off into the stairwell. Mr. Potter, if you would stay behind for a moment, Dumbledore asks, then sighs as both Harry and James look back at him. The younger, Dumbledore clarifies. James looks at Harry, confused for a moment before realization dawns over his face. Wait, he says, turning to look at McGonagall with a hopeful expression. Does that mean... Am I allowed to sign his hugging permission slip? McGonagall stares uncomprehendingly, and James clarifies. Apparently, adult me is a real stick in the mud. McGonagall just looks at James for a moment, then wordlessly points at the stairwell. James shoots Harry an apologetic look before following the others. Harry sinks back into his chair, staring at Dumbledore. He was annoyed at his friends earlier, true, but now all he wants to do is grab Hermione and Ron and hide under the covers of his bed for a million years. Harry wonders what shock feels like. Is this it? Is he in shock? I'm sure you have questions, Dumbledore begins. Harry cuts in. Can I go? Harry cuts in. I'm not. I want to go. Dumbledore sighs, and McGonagall looks suddenly very sad. All I ask is that you try to give Mr. Black the benefit of the doubt, Dumbledore finally says. He is a complicated boy. Yeah, Harry says, standing up. He doesn't look back as he leaves Dumbledore's circular office. Fun. Chapter 2 is over. I love these short chapters. It's so nice. Genuinely, so nice to be like, okay, I'll go sit down and record a chapter, and the chapter's done in like 15 minutes. It's great. It's awesome. I was like trying to find one shots. I found a lot of different ones, but I was looking for specifically Jagulus ones because someone asked for them. I can't find any. I probably could if I just actually go to AO3, but I have like a reserve saved of a whole bunch of ones that I want to get through. Uh, couldn't find any there, and I was like, oh my god, why do I not have any here? Anyway, love this one. It's so silly. I don't think there's any ships in this one. I'll quickly check the tags. Um, oh no, we get Wolfstar, but that's it. And that'll be very interesting with everything. Okay, hope you enjoyed this. I think it's so silly and fun. I will see you guys in the next one. I might do that today, I might not. I'm gonna meet up with a friend soon enough, and then just depending. I'll probably do one tomorrow though, just because it's so nice and short, and I'm not planning on doing anything tomorrow. Okay, well, bye.